All right, I'm here to talk to you today about pedals, pedal boards, the pretty much the whole idea from beginning to end, whether you're starting off as someone who doesn't have any pedals at all and you want to jump right into it. Maybe you have a couple of pedals or you have a full pedal board and you want to know a little bit more about maybe the order of what you should put your pedals in, some different ways you can do it, the best ways you can power your stuff, what kind of board you should get. So I'm going to try to give the quickest crash course I can, sort of from beginning to end, trying to cover as much of this as I can. So I got a bunch of pedals up here on this board. These are just some of the pedals I have to choose from for today. So first off, I think I'll talk a little bit about the kind of boards that you can use. So you can really use anything. I have right here a Furman pedal board, which the nice thing about this is it's powered. So what that means is you can see over here you have a cable that plugs into the wall, and this is powered, which has outlets which you can use to charge other things or plug whatever you need into there. And it has power right here where you can plug any of these into your pedals here. So it has, I believe, 8 power units here to plug into any one of those and power it. And this is also what they call isolated power. So I'll get into that a little bit. So what that is each one of these is pretty much the same as if you had 8 independent just regular chargers, like a 9-volt charger, Boss charger. Most pedals, especially today, are going to run on something like this. So the benefit to running isolated power is going to be that each one of these is going to have its own independent source of power, the same as if it was being charged by individual power supplies like this. The alternative to that is either doing something called daisy chain, so you can plug this into something that will have little outlets to plug into this, but that's not isolated power, which means that all of the power is running from this one supply to supply all your pedals. So if you imagine it kind of like a hose, if each one of these has a steady stream of power individually to each pedal. If you have one source of power and that has to power other things, if you're thinking about the hose concept, imagine it getting split off into 8 other smaller hoses. The power is going to run much lower, and it can lead to either buzz or just not getting the best sound you possibly could. So I definitely recommend getting isolated power, which is something that some boards are going to have, which this one has here. The other thing I have here today is this is the pedal board from the bass player in my band, and there's 2 things I want to talk about here. So one thing is this board here is a pedal train Metro, and you have an added power supply here. So a lot of times you see Voodoo Lab pedal power supplies. There's a whole bunch of different ones. This also provides isolated power and is something that you can get for a pedal board like this that normally is just a blank piece of metal with Velcro on it. So the other benefit to this is that if you see here, you have little slots where the cables can go down. I haven't wired up this bottom board here yet, but the benefit to that is if you want it to be really clean, then all the wires will fall under there. And if you go online and look at videos of people with pedal boards, you'll see you can get it really nice and tight and clean if that's what you want. I don't really care about that so much myself. So I have this here, and the cables are just going to kind of run into each other. But as long as the cables are good, the power is isolated, it just looks a little bit messier. But so that's really the only thing about that. Other than that, you can really do whatever you want. So this is a patent pending Marshall board that I made myself here, which I took a little bit of extra rug, put it on a piece of wood I found in the basement, put a little glitter and purple spray paint for that pizzazz that you need, and it works just fine. You know, you can put your things on there if you wanted to get a isolated little well, maybe it doesn't work as well as I thought it did, but anyway, you can take any real thing, like skateboard, anything you want, and try to just put some Velcro on it. And while I'm just on the topic of that, Velcro is the main thing that I see most people use. You can use those like zip ties and stuff. That's a little bit too final for me because I tend to switch my stuff around a lot. So there's a whole number of different kinds of boards you can do. You can make it out of anything if you want to get something sort of cheaper. So moving along here, I'm going to just use some of these pedals as an example to kind of talk about the order, because that's a big thing that you hear people talking about. So I'm going to take these off for a second, and I'm going to put them on back one at a time in what you would call the conventional pedal order, which is how you're going to see most people putting their pedals on their board. And this way is the way that you would do it if you're trying to get the cleanest sound. You're going for more of a straightforward sound, and I'll sort of get into how all of that works. So the first pedal I'm going to put on is the tuner. And the reason for that is because you want the tuner to receive the most direct guitar signal. So going straight from your guitar to the cable goes into the tuner. And by doing that, you're preserving the most direct tone from the guitar going into that pedal, which makes it so that it can tune most accurately. So you could put it really anywhere, but if you're running a bunch of sort of wacky like fuzzes and delays and stuff, it might mess that up if it's further in the chain. So the next thing I'm going to put down is the volume pedal. And this one is one that I see a lot of people put kind of anywhere. You can really put it wherever you want. I put it in the beginning mostly for the same concept as the tuner, that you want it to receive some more of the direct signal. But depending on what you're trying to do, you could put it more towards the middle or more towards the end. The volume pedal, I would encourage you to kind of just see where that fits best in your setup. So the next thing I have here is a compressor. So I'm going to use this, calling it a compressor, because that's what the next thing would be in the chain here. And I usually leave a compressor on very, very slightly all the time just to kind of smooth things out. Some people don't use a compressor. It's not a necessary thing. If you don't want to use one, there's a couple different applications for it. But if you were to use one, it's next in the chain. I'm going to use one for my board here. And just touching on this pedal for a second, this is a 2-in-1 pedal. So you have a compressor, and you have a JHS Morning Glory. This is a Keeley compressor. It's a collaboration they did called the Steak and Eggs. So I'm putting this in the beginning because I want the compressor in the beginning. The same sort of idea with these two pedals. I want it early in the chain so that it gets a compressed sound to then go outward. And that's a lot of what the order is. If you put, say, a fuzz right here, you're getting a fuzz signal going into a compressed signal. And what that does is it's already fuzzy before it gets compressed, which, if you think about it, it's going to make it so that the tone is going to be a little more unpredictable and varying, especially if you put like modulation in front of there. So that's the main purpose of doing this order conventionally, is to eliminate that sort of thing. Get rid of buzz, get rid of any sort of unconventional types of sounds. And this isn't a low gain overdrive, which I'm going to leave here because it's a 2-in-1 pedal. I can't put this another place in the chain. I actually like it here because I use it to kind of be like the next stage gain, or like a dirty guitar amp, because I play into a clean amp. So I use this almost to be as if I was playing into a dirty amp, which next I'm going to go into the fuzz over here. So this is a Big Muff Russian reissue, and some people like their fuzz before, or they usually would have the compressor, maybe you'd have the fuzz in placement here, and then they would put the Morning Glory or like low gain overdrive after. That's something you can mess around with. I like it before because the way that they initially built guitar pedals, or distortion and fuzz and overdrive rather, was to be played, play a dirty guitar amp into them and use it to get you into the next stage overdrive or fuzz or distortion. Nowadays you see a lot of people just using individual pedals because it's a little bit easier to dial in stuff like that. You can really do whatever you want. I like it in this sort of setup because I like to have the sort of the dirty signal going into the fuzz, but I think the more important thing is just have the fuzz earlier in the chain. So then from there, I'm going to go into this Phase 90. This is just a Eddie Van Halen version, so it's got the script button here if you want to go either way. I'm going to use this as my modulation. So your modulation could be phaser, could be chorus, flanger, tremolo. There's a number of different things out there. Anything kind of weird and wobbly is usually modulation. And you want that after your drives, because if you have a driven signal that's going into a phase signal, it's going to come out much clearer. If you put modulation, or in this case a phaser, before those, so if I put that earlier in the chain over here, what that's going to do is you're going to have a phase signal going into a compressed signal, going into an overdriven signal, going into a fuzz signal. And this is already wobbly by the time it gets here. And then you have this on, you turn this on, then by the time it gets here, it's not going to be able to read it the same way as if a clear signal was going through there. So it's going to spread out and be a little bit weird sounding. It might have like a little more buzz or pulse to it. Not necessarily a bad sound, but just something that's going to be a little less typical, a little harder to kind of control as a sound. So that's why most people kind of put this over here. I actually like to put the phase before sometimes because you get some cool univibe type of sounds, but that's really up to you. From there, I'm going to put a delay. So I'm going to call this a delay. It's really an echo. It's two echoes going into each other that creates like a delay reverb sort of sound. But for lack of a better word, I'm going to call this delay just for the sake of the video. So same sort of concept. You put the delay towards the end because you don't want a delayed signal before you get into something else if you want the clarity of all these pedals to come out. So think about it. You have a delay, and that's going at a certain rate, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it goes into here, and it's delaying before it has the chance to be overdriven. If you do the opposite, where say it's going in this way, you have a driven signal going into the delay, which is going to have the repeats be even, and it's not going to buzz or be infrequent or anything like that. The benefit to going beforehand would be if you wanted to do kind of shoegaze stuff, or what I do is I like to put this Meteor before the big muff because it gets that kind of weird sound as well. But traditionally you would put it back here on the end because of the same sort of concept, where if you put the reverb in before something too early in the chain, the sound gets reverberated before it gets the chance to be overdriven. And that's really what the main idea behind keeping something in the chain is. And also, if you think about it, the last thing, if this is, assuming this is my last pedal, which this is the last one I'm going to put on just for the board, for example, for today, this would go straight into an amp. And your amp typically would be the thing that has reverb or potentially tremolo. So that's another reason why those things are kind of last, because your amp is the last pedal goes into the amp, and that's what comes out of the amp. So it goes from your guitar to whatever is first to the last pedal going out of your amp. So I'm going to wire these up really quick, and then I'll show you a couple examples. But just before I do that, one little thing I found is easier. When you're doing this, when you're plugging in all the power supply, plug these in first, because what you can do is if you plug these in and you're using these cables, you can use these to sort of push them down so they don't get in the way. That may not be applicable if you're using one of the like pedal train type of pedal boards where they have the slots, but that's something that I do that I found is a little bit easier. Okay, so now we're all wired up here. So everything's wired in the order that we were talking about. So we're going tuner, volume, compressor, overdrive, fuzz, phase, delay, echo, into reverb, into the amp. So I got a SG here. This is a Zoot Suit SG that I'm playing through a Dr. Z Maz 18 NR, which is no reverb. So no reverb on the amp. I got some over here for the Meteor. So I'm just going to play a couple quick sounds just so you get the idea. I like to leave the compressor on all the time. So this is my regular sound. If I turn this on, I usually set it somewhere around here and then use this as my general volume. So I'll put it somewhere around here. It's probably about the same. I'll turn it up a little more. It's a little more compressed than I want, so I'm going to turn it up here. So somewhere around here. That's a little louder, but besides that, not a huge difference. I just like keeping it on for when you have a bunch of other pedals on. So I'll leave that on, and kind of just smooths everything out. So this is my first stage gain, kind of a dirty sound. Into a fuzz. Boost that sound. So then when you use these combinations with other pedals, that's really where you're going to hear this difference. So I'll have a fuzz into a phase, which is going to sound like this. So even though the sound may sound like a little bit out there, the main idea is that the connection is very inside in terms of you can hear the fuzz, you can hear the clarity of the phase 90, and that's really what this order is going to do. So you can play regular chords and it's going to work. I'll add a delay in there, same thing, it's just going to have a delay signal now. So that's the idea of that. I'll take these off and just add the reverb so you can get that sort of sound. I usually have it somewhere in the ballpark of here. This is a little bit of a weirder reverb. It's a little bit less conventional, for lack of a better word. I know it's something we've been talking about a lot for today, but it still has that reverb sound, but this is designed to be a little bit more lo-fi. So it's going to have a little bit more of that sound than a typical reverb. But the thing to note is that you hear the distorted signal and then it gets reverberated. So I'll just turn on everything just for fun. And so that's something like a swell. Alright, so let's rewire this in an unconventional way, and then we'll see how it sounds different from this setup. Alright, so now we have everything set up in what I'm calling an unconventional sort of way. Actually, the only thing I'm realizing now... Let's go in the right way, actually. Okay, never mind. You guys can play tricks on you. So sometimes these colored cables can actually help you out because you can see the connection a little bit easier. So anyway, the compressor here is going to sound the same with this overdrive. Compressor, Morning Glory. So those are the same because it's in the same order, and also because it's the only pedal on. So this is also in the same order as it was before, meaning that the unconventional nature of the order or conventional nature of the order only affects the pedals that are turned on. So you could have it wired unconventionally, have two plugged in the conventional way, and if only those two are on, then it will still sound the same way like in the last setup that we did. So this is the same thing here. Even though I have these two pedals in between, that's the main difference. I put the phase before the fuzz, the reverb before the fuzz, and I moved the volume I moved the tuner and the volume over to the other side. So this is closer to my setup, except I would have the volume and the tuner over here to kind of preserve the clarity. And this is what this is going to sound like. So you have your regular fuzz. Sounds just like we had it in the last video, or the last setup here. So that's going to sound the same, just like the last setup. What's going to sound different now is when you have something before it. So now I'm going to put the phaser before that. It's going to sound a little more unpredictable and have a little more feedback to it. So So the cool thing about that is it's a little bit more infrequent. The pulse isn't quite as uniform. So before what was happening is it was going fuzz into this. So you have a distorted signal that's then getting pulsed by this. Now you have a pulsy, wobbly signal going into this, which is going to have a little bit more of an infrequent sort of sound. The other thing that I like to do is put the reverb before that. This is going to have a much more dramatic sound, and I think you'll hear that. So. And I just want to show everybody here, I'm going to play a note. So I'm going to play a note. So from the moment I put my hand out here, the note wasn't ringing from the guitar anymore. It's just from this sort of setup. So you can hear how it kind of sustains it. It also is a little bit more unpredictable. So this may not be good for your regular chords. Unless you want that kind of sound. So if you're going for more of like a thrashy, like shoegazy, spacey kind of sort of thing, then this might be exactly what you want to do. I kind of like that sound for my playing, so I have it set up like this right now. I also have multiple reverbs and delays, so sometimes I'll put one here and then I'll put one at the end, so you can have both options. It's good to be able to have both the conventional and unconventional option available to you. So the other thing you'll notice is for solos with this one, so that kind of sound, to me, it's not a good or bad thing. It's a little bit less usable in everyday context. So that's what I'm talking about more with this conventional unconventional thing. This is more for your like art rock, shoegaze, like kind of out there sort of sounds. If that's what you're going for, this is a great setup to try to do that. If you're trying to play just in a regular cover band or classic rock, country blues, you know, just kind of more straightforward type of music, then you're probably going to want to go more with the original setup. But maybe you can even find one pedal to put out of order, so you have that one solo, and you can put your phaser before something and get a sort of weird sound. But it's all up to you. The other thing I want to mention too, so I'll keep that sound for a second. So you have... So this delay is in the same sort of context that we had it before. It's at the end of the chain. So now what's going to happen is you're still going to have this different sound that we have here, but that sound is now going to be delayed evenly because the delay's at the end. If the delay was before, then you would have repeats that were going into this, which may not have the repeat be even in terms of, like, if you have a delay going 1, 2, 3, 4, then it might bounce around a little bit. So in this sort of setup, I have unconventional going into conventional, and that's what this is going to sound like. So you'll have the weird sound from here being delayed at our even rate. I'll turn that up just a little bit so you can hear it. And the last thing I want to show you is, so I'm going to turn all the pedals on now. I'm going to get everything real gainy, real weird. So it's going to be unbearably feedback. So lots of sound there. I'm going to turn that down just for saving everybody's ears here. So if I turn the tuner on now. Obviously you can't hear anything, but I have all these pedals running right now before this. So I'm gonna hit just a regular open E, and it's not able to find it. I'm gonna try it again. Now it's getting there. I'm hitting it a couple times, and it is able to get the note. It's having a hard time trying to hit the note. I should have taken a video earlier with the tuner in the front, but I think everyone has probably seen a tuner before for the most part. So the point about this is that if you can see, I'm hitting it a couple of times, and it's taking it a second to read this. Once I turn these off, it should be able to read it a little bit better, but still it's going to be harder. See, now it's coming in right away. And the idea is the signal is now being bypassed by all these and running closer to here. So when you have all these on, you have all that sound coming out of all these pedals then going into here, especially say you have a crazy solo and you have all these turned on for your last big bang of your song. Then you go to hit your, or assuming you got to play again or something, you hit your tuner to go into the next song, and then you try to tune, and you can't tune until you get all of these off again. If you have this in the front, these can all still be on. You hit your tuner, which also mutes your signal, especially, which is great for gigging. You have this in the front, you hit it, all these can still be left on, then you just hit them off individually or leave which ones you want on when you're going to come in for the next thing. So the volume at the end, I don't hear as a dramatic of a sound with this, but I'll show you here just for reference as well. So. It's going to have a slightly different sound being towards the end. The other thing you can do is a lot of times I'll put this in the middle, but I'll wire it so that it's still in the front. So just a kind of last sending off thing to think about, you can put these in any sort of order that you like in terms of how you want them on the board. So if you really like this over here, doesn't really matter whether it's over here or over here. The thing that matters is the wiring. So always make it easy for you to be able to hit these pedals. I have things a little bit sloppy right now just for the sake of just wiring everything up quickly for the video. But you always want to make sure that everything's easy to hit. So if I have a pedal like this and I have it over in this sort of range, which obviously wouldn't be right on top of here, but say it's over here, you got to be careful that you don't hit these knobs, because I've had a lot of times where I have a lot more pedals than this on the board, and you go to hit this and you turn all your knobs. So that's one kind of last thing to think about. But other than that, it's really whatever you want to do. Hopefully this video just kind of helps you navigate some shortcuts so that you don't have to go through this whole process of doing all these things yourself and just go straight to trying the thing that works out best for you. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be making some more videos in the future. This is more like my first formal lesson video, so stick around, and I'll have a bunch more videos with lessons, pedal reviews, how things work, and all that great stuff. All right, thank you.